Welcome back to Keep It Real Boxing. This is Cypher Box. Okay, so what a couple of days or 24 hours we're having. All right, listen, look, I'm going to touch on a lot of things in this video regarding Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, and the things that have transpired over the last, 10, 12, 15 hours, whatever you want to talk about, last 24 hours. And I'm going to start talking, I'm going to let you know what I'm going to talk about first of all. So I'm going to talk about the World Boxing News article that originally came out yesterday. And then I'm going to talk about the ESPN article from Dan Raphael, where he talked to Shelly Finkel, and World Boxing News, obviously, when they talked to Shelly Finkel. And I'm going to talk about, obviously, the WBA and their demand or their order where they've mandated that Joshua versus Povetkin get signed in the next 24 hours. And I'm also going to talk about an article that's just come out on boxingscene.com that we may potentially see Anthony Joshua versus Povetkin on Eddie Hearn's U.S.A. app, Dazn, the streaming app Dazn. It could potentially be the first ever fight on the Dazn app, the US Dazn app. And the fight date would be the 22nd of September. Now remember, Eddie said he's going to launch the Dazn app in September, and this article is basically saying from boxingscene.com that that Joshua versus Povetkin could be potentially the first fight on Dazn on the 22nd of September. But I'm going to talk about that in a bit. So let's start with the World Boxing News article. So as you know, late yesterday, an article came out. I did a video on it. An article came out from World Boxing News where they had got an exclusive from Shelly Finkel, and basically all Shelly Finkel said in that interview was that Deontay Wilder was going to sign the contract and Eddie Hearn would receive that contract on Friday, no later than Friday. And then on the back of that, in that video, I turned around and said that, well, I'm not going to get too excited because it's only 50% there, because one fighter has signed the contract. Now we need to see Anthony Joshua sign his end of the deal and we've got a fight. But until that happens, and I did say, the reason I'm not getting excited as well, because I know Eddie Hearn likes to play his games. And, I'm going to talk about that as we go, move on with this video. But that's just the short version of what happened with regards to the the World Boxing News article. Yeah. So let's move on to the ESPN app and the article from Dan Raphael and his article with Shelly Finkel. And this article obviously came out, well, I was aware of it after the World Boxing News article came out, and that was this morning because I did my video on the World Boxing News article late last night. So I'm just going to start off by reading the beginning part of the article. So here's what it says. Heavyweight world title holder Deontay Wilder is ready to sign a contract to face unified titleist Anthony Joshua for the Undisputed Championship this fall, provided there are what co-manager Shelly Finkel described as small changes to the agreement Joshua's promoter Eddie Hearn of Matchroom Boxing sent him. I'm sending him back the contracts with a couple of notes, Finkel told ESPN on Monday. Hopefully there is no problem and will sign right after the changes are made. Finkel declined to specify what the Wilder side would like to have changed, but he insisted they were small changes. He also said the contract did not provide a date or site for the fight, though it had been discussed previously that it could take place sometime in October or November at Principality Stadium in Cardiff, Wales, where Joshua has drawn sold-out crowds of 78,000 for his past two fights. Okay, so here's my take on this ESPN article. Now, if you remember 2 videos ago, when I talked about this subject, and I spoke about Eddie Hearn, and I obviously, exposed more things about Eddie Hearn, as I always have done in my videos. I mentioned things like poison pellets in the contract. Yeah, deliberately placed there to delay the fight, or delay the fight from being signed. Yeah, the contract's being signed. I spoke about this about 2 videos ago. I think it was now. Okay, and what I mean by poison pellets, you put things in the contract that delay or put off the opponent, which would be Deontay Wilder in this situation, from signing the contract, or you delay him from signing the contract. Because, like I said in my previous videos, I've said it before, that Eddie Hearn wants AJ to fight Povetkin next. Okay, and that's what it sounds like is happening in this whole situation in terms of this ESPN article with Shelly Finkel, where he's stating that I've requested some changes because there's some stuff in the contract that aren't right. So let's break down what Shelly Finkel has said in both articles. Yeah, the World Boxing News article and the ESPN article, which are pretty much the same. All right. So I'm gonna break it down in terms of when they first accepted the offer, right up to where we are right now. Okay. And remember, yeah, when they accepted the offer on the 11th of June, when Deontay Wilder finally accepted the offer, the lowball offer, the revised offer from Eddie Hearn, okay, he had only accepted the financial offer. He hadn't accepted the terms and conditions because he hasn't seen the terms and conditions of the contract. Yeah? And I'm going to play you an audio clip from Eddie Hearn where he says this himself.
Update on this Joshua Wilder situation. He put a video and tweet and stuff out the other day saying that he's going to accept the offer. You said you're going to send a contract.
Yeah.
What's happened?
Since then, we're just drafting a contract, which they should get today, tomorrow at the latest. We made an offer about 4 weeks ago. We improved the offer from our first one. And yeah, on Monday, they emailed us and said, we accept the terms, now we want to see a contract.
This is always how it should have been in the first place, shouldn't it?
What's that?
Well, you sort of accept the terms and then
you asked for a I mean, we wanted to know the terms before we accepted the terms.
Right.
And we don't know whether he accepts our terms. All we know is that he accepts our financial offer. Right. So God knows what's going to happen when we send him the full terms. They're not going to be difficult. They're not going to be unusual. But who knows?
But the main sticking point is the financial terms, surely, isn't it? After that, everything can be kind of worked on.
I think so. Yeah? You'd hope so. I mean, they requested a contract on Monday.
So that was Eddie Hearn confirming that Deontay Wilder on the 11th of June had stated that he accepts Matchroom Boxing's financial offer to fight Anthony Joshua in the UK. He had not accepted the terms and conditions at that time because he had not seen them. And you heard Eddie there himself saying that since the request for a contract from Team Wilder, we've just now drafted up. We've now drafted up a contract. Okay, and they'll get it by Friday, which this interview with IFL was done on the 14th of June. So the next day, Shelly Finkel should have got the contract, which was the 15th. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to go through this ESPN article and what Shelly Finkel had to say. Now, remember, in the World Boxing News article, Shelly Finkel stated that he has a paper trail to all of this. Yeah, so he has a paper trail for all of what's gone on. Yeah, from email dates, when emails were sent, etc., stuff like that. He's got the receipts for everything, right? So he says he's got proof to back everything up. So I'm going to get into this article now. So here we go. Finkel said their side accepted the terms of the agreement on June 11th and asked Hearn to send a long-form contract. This took Matchroom by surprise, never thinking that Wilder would accept their below-market offer, Finkel said. Shortly after, Eddie Hearn went public saying that we would receive a contract by Friday, June 15th, when in fact, we did not receive a contract until late on Monday, June 18th. So right there's the first delay that's been created by Eddie Hearn. Yeah, he says the contract's going to be there on the 15th with Team Wilder. It doesn't turn up until the 18th. That's delay number one. You've already delayed the signing of the contract by 3 or 4 days. Right, and I say 3 or 4 days because if you count 16, 17, 18, that's 3 days. But if you include the 15th in there as well, that's 4 days potentially. So you've delayed the fight, right? The signing of the contract right there yourself by 3 or 4 days by not living up to your word and saying the contract will be out to you by the 15th. And remember, you had a whole week to put the contract together. So if you look at it this way, if you add in from the day where Team Wilder accepted the deal, which was the financial offer, which was on the 11th of June, yeah, that's about 4 or 5 days there. So that's about, in total, 8 to 9 days where you've delayed the signing of the contract. Just there alone. Okay, let's move on to the next bit. On Tuesday, June 19th, we requested a clarification of 2 points. They did not respond. I requested them again on Thursday, June 21st. And we finally received a response on Friday, June 22nd. Now, this was when Shelly Finkel, when he's referring to Thursday, June 21st, this is when he went public saying that he'd requested some clarification on these points early on in that week, and Eddie Hearn hadn't still got back to him. And then, remember, Eddie Hearn then came back the next day or on the Saturday and he put a tweet out saying that the win call has been satisfied. Okay, so that's the second delay right there. Yeah, that's the second delay. So the 19th to the 22nd, right? If you count 20, 21, 22, that's 3 days. If you include the 19th in there as well, that's about 4 days. So that's another 3 or 4 days you've delayed the signing of the contract. That Eddie Hearn has delayed the signing of the contract. Right there. Now what I said, it's about 8 or 9 days or whatever it is you delayed it initially a minute ago. And then you add in these 3 or 4 days on top of that. That's what? Do you know what I mean? That's close to 13 days? 12, 13 days you've now delayed the signing of the contract by? That's almost 2 weeks. Okay, let's move on. Actually, before I move on, Shelly Finkel said just there that, there were some clarifications on some points that were required. But I also understand that there were some adjustments that needed to make, basically. Yeah? So, Eddie Hearn then on the 23rd tweeted out that the Winkle has been satisfied. We don't know that, because you would have had to resend the contract with the adjustments and clear up whatever was needed to be clarified and adjusted. Right? So we don't know that at all, that Shelly Finkel at that point was satisfied. People are just going on what Eddie Hearn's tweeted out there. And I'm sorry, I've said this before. I don't believe Eddie Hearn. I've proven time and time again, everything Eddie Hearn said has turned out to be a lie. I've done so many videos on it. I've provided so much audio clips and proof and evidence over the time that I've been doing these videos on this topic. I don't believe him. Yeah? So we don't know if Shelly Finkel was actually satisfied. Let's move on to the next bit. 2 days later, on Sunday, June 24th, I sent them a letter acknowledging Eddie's email on June 22nd, telling them that they would have the contract back by Friday, June 29th. Since the contract did not state the date or venue, I also asked for that information. These are the facts, and Matchroom will have the contract back to them by Friday, June 29th. Finkel said it will then be up to Hearn to address the issues he pointed out. So Finkel had got back to Eddie Hearn on the 24th of June, which was a Sunday, stating that they would get the contract back on the 29th of Friday, the 29th of June, but it was up to Eddie Hearn to correct the issues in the contract first. So Eddie and Hearn had to get the contract, had to revise the issues again, and then send it back out to Shelly Finkel so they could sign it and get it back out to them by Friday the 29th. Here's some points for me now, So let's go back to where on the 23rd, Saturday the 23rd, when Eddie Hearn put out the tweet that the Winkle had been satisfied. Yeah? Okay. Shelly Finkel is clearly saying, like I said, he's saying he got back to Eddie Hearn on the 24th saying that they'll get a signed contract and all that sort of stuff, yeah? So that means from the 23rd and the 24th, or whenever it was, Finkel had to revise this, obviously, the contract again. But he identified issues with the contract again. So two things that either happened. Either Eddie Hearn didn't make the adjustments that were required, or he made the adjustments and played around with something else in the contract. But either way, that's another 2 days of delay. Right? So you created another 2 days of delay. So in total, that's about 15 or 16 days you've delayed the signing of the contract. That's what Eddie Hearn's done there. He's delayed the signing of the contract by about 15 to 16 days. Almost 2 weeks. And if you want, I'll tell you what, even if you took out the 11th, which was the day that Wilder accepted the offer, to the 15th, when Eddie Hearn said you would receive the terms and conditions of the contract, which is about, what did I say, 3 or 4 days? Even if you take that out, 15, 16 days, you take that out, what does that leave you with? 11 or 12 days you've delayed the contract by? That's still around about 2 weeks. Now, this is what Shelly Finkel also said. We don't agree on one of those issues, but we will move ahead, and if he wants to get it done, we'll get it done. Finkel said, there's nothing that should prevent this fight from getting done if Joshua and Eddie want to make the fight. So, clearly there have been issues, from what Shelly Finkel's saying, with the contract. Right? And he's basically saying to you, here you go, here's the contract back, make those small adjustments that we're asking you to do, send it back to us, we'll sign it, and we'll send the contract back to you by the 29th, Friday the 29th. So it's not as easy as Eddie Hearn's been making it out to be, like just sign the contract. Quite clearly there's been issues. Now a lot of you might say, well, if there's small issues, why don't you just sign the contract, it won't make a difference. Well, hold on, first of all, Deontay Wilder's given in to everything they've demanded. Fight in the UK. Take a flat fee, not a percentage split. All right, he's given in to all their demands, so I don't think it would hurt them to give in to a few small adjustments on a contract, would it? No. You know what? This is another way where Eddie Hearn has just delayed the contract to long out this whole process, so they can get Joshua versus Povetkin in September. Now, this is the negotiation period still as well. Let's not forget that. Before I move on to the next part of this whole saga that's recently come up in the last couple of days, this is part of the negotiation period. The financial offer was accepted, now you're negotiating the terms and conditions of the contract. Okay? Now a lot of people are going to turn around and say, well, it's Wilder's fault. He took him 4 weeks. 4 weeks to get back to Eddie Hearn and accept the offer. It's his fault. Okay, so let me put it this way to you, yeah? Deontay Wilder made his $50 million offer on the 25th of April. Yeah? On the 25th of April, he made that offer. Okay? We know the $50 million offer was real, and I will play some sound clips again to back it up, but we know the offer was real. News articles came out on the 27th and 28th of May stating that Anthony Joshua was going to turn down the $50 million offer because he wanted the fight in the UK. 25th to 27th, 28th of May, so the 25th of April to the 27th and the 28th of May is roughly about 4 weeks. So why is it okay for Anthony Joshua to take 4 weeks? Right? Why is it okay for Anthony Joshua to take 4 weeks to decide whether he was going to take the $50 million offer or not, but it's not okay for Deontay Wilder to take 4 weeks to decide whether he was going to take a revised lowball offer to fight in the UK? There's a phrase for that in boxing. It's called, when you think like that, where you AJ fans are saying that, oh, he took 4 weeks, but it was okay for AJ to take 4 weeks, but you don't mention that. You know what that's called? It's called double standards.
And actually, when we look at the numbers, with a big American TV partner, it is less than the $50 million offer, but potentially not that much less. So,
any update with Wilder?
Yeah, I think the fight's going to happen for sure.
Yeah? Confident?
Yeah, very confident.
50 mil, baby?
Yeah. But I ain't selling my soul for 50 mil.
But you're confident that'll be your next fight, or?
Confident. Very confident.
And those sound clips were for you guys who still want to question the $50 million offer. Eddie Hearn confirmed it there, that when you do the numbers, when we do our numbers, when you work it all out, actually it works out at less than their $50 million offer, but not that much less. And AJ there getting asked by Kugan Cassius, $50 million? And he's like, yeah, but I'm not going to sell my soul for $50 million, but yeah. Right, so I'm tired of hearing all his excuses that the $50 million don't exist. Now, I'm gonna talk about another thing that the AJ fans are saying, and I know I've already had an AJ fan supporter in this whole situation, my new pal in the comment section who I was debating for the last couple of days. He left a comment regards to all this news that's come out in the last 24 hours or so, that he was like, I know you're not going to agree with me because I know you're going to basically blame it all on AJ, that this is Eddie Hearn's fault, etc. and stuff like that. But if Deontay Wilder had taken the $12.5 million offer originally offered, then this fight would have been done by now. Alright, here's my take on it. Alright. Deontay Wilder didn't take that offer because he knew how much money was involved in this fight. Yeah? He knew how much money was involved in this fight. This fight, look at it. Look how much commotion there is around this fight at the moment. Look how much interest. Every YouTube channel's talking about it. All the mainstream media outlets are talking about it. Yeah, everyone's talking about it. This is the biggest fight in boxing right now. You know, arguably next to Canelo Triple G, you know, it might be even bigger than that. So why would you take a $12.5 million offer? A small smidget of the potential revenue this fight's going to make. Doesn't make sense. Here's my next point as well. You're saying I could say the same thing in return. Why didn't AJ just take the $50 million that was offered and fight in America? $50 million was offered to you and you turned it down. Why didn't you take that offer? He gave these reasons that, oh, you know, the judges and the refs in America, they like to play games. Basically saying that he felt he was going to get cheated, but yet he says he's going to knock Deontay Wilder out, right? And if you're going to knock Deontay Wilder out, why are you worried about the refs and the judges? You shouldn't even be worried about that. Yeah? Then he said, oh, I want to do a fight in the UK. I want to make the fight in the UK. I want to give something back to the UK fans. But yet, when he made that statement, a week or two before that, Barry Hearn did an interview, which BoxingScene.com did an article on it, where he turned around and said that basically, if you allow the fans to be the matchmakers, you'll end up skint. And he was in that article, he was stating that he was going to tell AJ, he was going to advise AJ to delay the fight against Deontay Wilder by a year, because you know what? He wanted to generate even more interest into this fight and hopefully make more money off the fight and bring in more revenue and make more profit from this fight. Actually, let's go back to the reasons why AJ said he didn't want to fight in America, because of the ref, the judges. He wanted to make the fight in the UK for the UK fans, right? Okay, I'm going to play you an audio clip, right, from an interview which Anthony Joshua did just after he beat Vladimir Klitschko. He was at the Mayweather Boxing Club and he was interviewed by Dante's Boxing Nation. Shout out to him and his channel, of course. But I'm going to play you the audio clip from that. Right? And this, at this moment in time, they were still kind of waiting on Vladimir Klitschko to come back and let AJ and Eddie Hearn know whether he wanted a rematch. He hadn't retired yet, he was still deciding. And if the rematch was going to happen, where was the rematch going to take place? Listen to this audio.
So, I mean, are y'all going to bring it to Vegas? You know we want to see it out here in the States.
Yeah, I'd like to, for sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Right, if Klitschko wants a rematch, we're here. We're ready. So.
So he still doesn't really know if he wants it for sure.
We'll see. We'll wait and see. But I want to fight in Vegas.
You want to fight in Vegas? Okay, man.
I want to win so I can go to an after party.
That's what it is.
No problem. So, guess what?
Your next fight is when?
November.
Yeah.
November.
Where back?
Potentially here. Potentially.
I hope it is around the 29th.
Around like middle of November, if it's here, middle, later November.
So Dante asks Anthony Joshua, you know, when we're gonna see, are you gonna bring it to Vegas? And he says, I'd like to. Why not? Yeah. And then he also says, yeah, I want to fight in Vegas. Oh, you want to fight in Vegas? Dante says to him, and he says, yeah, I want to fight here. I want to have a big after party after I win something. Then he goes on and he starts talking to someone else randomly in the gym, and the guy asks him, when's your next fight? Oh, November. Where? Potentially here in Vegas. So you were willing to fight Vladimir Klitschko in Vegas in America. Yeah? You're willing to fight Vladimir Klitschko in Vegas in America. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Vladimir Klitschko and Anthony Joshua are European fighters. So you're happy to fight against another European fighter in America and get all your fans, Klitschko fans and AJ fans, to travel all the way to Vegas to fight in Vegas for a rematch with Vladimir Klitschko. Yeah? But you're not willing to come to the US to fight Deontay Wilder. You're willing to fight Vladimir Klitschko in Vegas, but you weren't worried about the refs and the judges back then. You know, and a lot of people are saying, well, Vladimir Klitschko's not, the reason he's worried about the refs and the judges is that they may side with Deontay Wilder, who's the American. Well, let's not forget, Vladimir Klitschko has a lot of connections in the boxing world as well, and it wouldn't be the first time he's fought in Vegas. And the decision may not go your way if it was to go 12 rounds in a rematch with Vladimir Klitschko. So I don't want to hear that nonsense. But you're willing to still... main point is that you were willing to fight Vladimir Klitschko in Las Vegas. But you're not willing to fight Deontay Wilder. See what I mean? And if I remember right, even Eddie Hearn was suggesting that the rematch with Vladimir Klitschko could happen in Las Vegas. You know why they wanted that fight in Las Vegas? Because there's more money in Las Vegas than there is here in the UK. Yeah? Even there's more money in Las Vegas than there is more money in Germany, where Klitschko usually fights. That's why they wanted the rematch. They knew that they were just involved in potentially the biggest and the best fight of the year when AJ fought Vladimir Klitschko for the first time. And they thought, let's capitalize on that. Let's take the fight to Vegas and make even more money. It'll be even more lucrative in Vegas. That's why they wanted to do that. But again, like I said, you're willing to fight Vladimir Klitschko in Vegas, but you're not willing to fight Deontay Wilder in Vegas, in America. See what I mean? This is what I'm on about, bullshit. And if you did make the fight for Klitschko, the rematch in Vegas, what about the UK fans, AJ? You know? Isn't that unfair to the UK fans that they had to travel? Weren't you thinking of the UK fans then? You see what I mean? Like I said a second ago, bullshit. Okay, so let's get back to what I was originally talking about, which was the Shelly Finkel article in ESPN. Because I got sidetracked there a little bit because obviously rebutting all the excuses that I know are going to come my way from the AJ fans. Alright? But like I was saying, this is a negotiation period, what's going on right now. Yeah? So the financial offer was accepted. When you accept the financial offer, that doesn't mean the negotiation period is over, because you've got to get terms and conditions of the contract. You've got to revise the contract when you receive it. You then got to send it back and say, hey, we're not happy with these 1 or 2 little points or whatever they are. Can you alter them, please? Then it's got to come back. Then you've got to look at it again. Then it's got to go back, etc. Back and forth until you thrash it all out and everything's perfect. So all these guys saying, oh, Wilder's lost his pen. Well, I'll tell you what, Wilder would put pen to paper if Eddie Hearn could get the contract right and stop messing around, which I've already proven. Stop clowning around and get it done. But we know he doesn't want to get it done. He wants Joshua versus Povetkin next. Okay, so let's move on to the WBA. And they've basically mandated that Joshua versus Povetkin get signed in the next 24 hours. All right, and this is what the president of the WBA, Mendoza, had to say. Today, the WBA requested an answer from Anthony Joshua's team regarding his fight with mandatory challenger Alex Povetkin. Mendoza said in a statement issued Tuesday, the WBA has allowed over a month's extension to negotiate with Povetkin and also ongoing discussions with Deontay Wilder. It appears the Wilder team have not returned the contract for the fight, and therefore we are requesting a date for the Joshua versus Povetkin fight with immediate effect. Right there. Let's talk about that bit of his statement. Right there. Listen to this again. It appears the Wilder team have not returned the contract for the fight, and therefore we are requesting a date for the Joshua versus Povetkin fight with immediate effect. It appears the Wilder team have not returned the contract. Okay? Now, you're close to potentially having Team Wilder sign a contract and return it to you by Friday. We're at Tuesday. We still got... So we had all of today. We had all of Wednesday, all of Thursday, potentially all of Friday, because you could have got the return contract later on in the day. Yeah? To have received a signed contract from Deontay Wilder. But the WBA have decided, with immediate effect, they're saying 24 hours to make Joshua versus Povetkin. Makes me wonder what Eddie Hearn said to the WBA. What was his conversation with them? Because if you project it in a negative way with a negative outcome, the WBA is going to take that negative outcome and say, oh, well, sounds like you're not getting anywhere with this team, with Team Wilder. Right, you got 24 hours to sign that contract, that fight that you've already set up with Povetkin. But if you do it in a positive way, you probably would have got a different reaction, which would have been, okay, here's where we're at the moment. Yeah, we're ready to sign for the Povetkin fight, but just to let you know, I know you gave us a 30-day extension and all that sort of stuff, a month's extension, but hear me out. Shelly Finkel says he's going to get the contract back to me by Friday. I just need to iron out a few issues, send it to him, they'll sign it, send it back to us. Yeah? Could you at least give us till next week Monday to finalise this from their side? Okay? Because 24 hours, another 4 or 5 days, 6, 7 days, whatever, up to next Monday, what's the difference to the WBA? It's not going to kill them, is it? So if you, I'm pretty sure they would have agreed to that. But if Eddie Hearn turned around and said, "Lan, look what Eddie Hearn's been saying actually in the media." So before Shelly Finkel came out yesterday with his comments to World Boxing News and ESPN, before that, Eddie Hearn was on Sky Sports saying, oh, we don't believe Deontay Wilder wants this fight. He's dragging his heels. Yeah? He doesn't want this fight, etc, etc. Yeah? And obviously the WBA will probably be keeping track of all of this. So one, you've put a negative message out there for the whole world to see. And then two, what was the conversation you had with the WBA when they contacted you Tuesday morning? Because if you projected yourself in a negative way, then immediately they're going to take it negatively and say, right, things aren't going well with Wilder. You haven't got a contract back, signed contract back. That's it. We're ordering Joshua versus Povetkin. But if you actually put a positive spin on it and say, just give me one more week, because they're telling me they're definitely going to have the contract back by Friday. Once I've just sort out these few little things, contract will be back on Friday, signed by Wilder. And then I just need to get AJ to sign it. So just give me to next week, Monday. I'm pretty sure the WBA would have accepted that. But funny enough, they didn't. And they gave a 24-hour deadline to sign AJ versus Povetkin. Because it's also funny that the WBA, I'm sure they must have been keeping track. Yeah? Because remember, Eddie Hearn, apparently, the WBA have actually been calling every single day. The WBA have been calling every single day, remember? So if they've been calling every single day, and Shelly Finkel got back to you on Sunday the 24th of June, telling you that we will have a signed contract for you by Friday. You just need to iron out the kinks in the contract and we'll get it signed and back to you by Friday the 29th of June. Then the WBA should know about all of this, shouldn't they? I find it really weird that the WBA in the middle, or actually at the point where, at a crucial point of the negotiation period, they've decided to put their foot down and say, you got 24 hours notice to sign AJ versus Povetkin. That's a little bit weird. If Eddie Hearn has been talking to the WBA every single day, remember, he's the one who said it. Eddie Hearn said that. He said the WBA are calling him every single day for an update, right? So they should be well and truly in the loop with all this situation. So if they've been calling every day, that means on Monday they must have called you again. And you should have said, oh, well, Shelly got back to me yesterday on Sunday and he said, we're going to have a signed contract to us by Friday. Okay, I just got to iron out a few kinks in the contract, send it back. They'll sign it, send it back, we'll have it on Friday. Right? But no. And the WBA should say, okay, fine, cool, we'll hold up. We can wait another week. But they didn't. They put their foot down and said 24 hours notice. Don't know, sounds suspect to me. Sounds very suspect to me. Okay? And not only that, why would the WBA suddenly want to put all this pressure like this moment at the crucial point of negotiations? Why would they want to put their foot down now? You do realise, and the WBA know this, that a mega unification fight between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world is financially more lucrative to the WBA and the other major sanctioning bodies than it is to the WBA to have AJ versus Povetkin. Why would you do that? Doesn't make sense. I could put theories out there. Has someone twisted the arm of the WBA? Somehow convinced them? Hey, we need you to put this 24-hour deadline on right now so we can make Joshua versus Povetkin. Because don't get me wrong, a lot of people are going to say, well, you think Eddie's got that kind of money to throw around and waste? He might not, but Povetkin's promoter might. Because that guy's a billionaire. He's got plenty of money to throw away. Don't forget that. And these sort of things do happen in boxing. If you know this sort of stuff goes on in boxing. Why else would, think about it. Why would the WBA suddenly in the middle of negotiations when you're about to potentially receive a signed contract from Deontay Wilder suddenly put their foot down? Doesn't make sense. And what did you AJ fans out there say about Dillian Whyte? Do you remember Dillian Whyte? So when the WBC ordered Dillian Whyte to fight Lewis King Kong Ortiz to see who becomes the number 2 mandatory challenger to Deontay Wilder's WBC belt, all of you guys out there and all the pro AJ channels out there were saying one thing. You were saying one phrase or using a particular word to describe that situation. What was it? I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what it was.
Corruption in boxing. Corruption in boxing. Corruption in boxing. Corruption in boxing.
You all accused the WBC of corruption. Right? That's what you did. You accused the WBC of corruption. So, if, according to you AJ fans, if corruption can go on with the WBC, why can't corruption go on with the WBA? Right? Exactly. Because you were all saying, oh, how is Dominic Brazil the #1 mandatory challenger? But Dillian Whyte's the #1 ranked in the WBC. Why should Dillian settle to be the #2 mandatory challenger? Etc, etc. Oh, this is corruption. The WBC. Oh, they've been paid off by Deontay Wilder. Oh. Well, you could say the same thing about the WBA then now, can't you? Because you tell me. Why would you put your foot down? Why would you put your foot down and set a 24-hour deadline during the most crucial part of negotiations in what would see as potentially the biggest and most lucrative fight of the year between Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder in a unification fight for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. See what I mean? But none of you AJ fans are going to do that. You're all going to argue this. Oh, you're way off. Oh, your conspiracy theories. Oh, you're making things up. I'm not making things up. I'm stating facts. You accused WBC of that. So why can't we suggest that the WBA? There's something funny going on with the WBA here. No? Sorry, but it just doesn't make sense what the WBA have done here. Doesn't make sense at all. And like I said, I was debating someone in the comment section the other day, and that individual kept on bringing up the WBC, that joke of the WBC organisation, the WBC, etc. And I knew what he was referencing. He was referencing the whole situation with Dillian Whyte and how all of you guys were accusing the WBC of corruption. But look, like I said, it doesn't make sense to me what the WBA have done. Okay, so let's move on to this story that I found on BoxingScene.com. I think it was initially put on World Boxing News. I'm not sure, but I found it on BoxingScene.com. Now, this story is about Joshua versus Povetkin, likely to happen on September the 22nd, and it's to be streamed by Eddie Hearn's US streaming app, Dazn. Right? So I'm going to read some of the article to you now, yeah? Assuming a deal is finalised for Anthony Joshua, Alexandra Povetkin fight, it likely would be the first boxing main event offered on the DAZN streaming service in the United States. BoxingScene.com has learnt that Joshua's mandatory WBA heavyweight title defence versus Povetkin probably will take place September 22nd. The Joshua Povetkin venue hasn't been determined. Regardless of where it takes place, streaming Joshua's next fight on DAZN would be a way to entice American boxing fans to subscribe to DAZN. Whenever a Joshua Povetkin deal materializes, their fight would be broadcast as pay-per-view main event by Sky Sports box office in the United Kingdom and by DAZN in the United States. Each of Joshua's past 6 fights have been televised live in the US by Showtime.
I mean, this is a perfect coup for DAZN to nail this fight. And we'll talk to them, obviously. We'll talk to other American broadcasters as well.
Now, what you were listening to there was Eddie Hearn in his last IFL interview. And before I go on, I want to say this. Shelly Finkel, I did this in a couple of videos ago and I confirmed it. I saw the article, he said it. Shelly Finkel said that Eddie Hearn had the final say in who was going to be the US broadcaster for Joshua versus Wilder in the US. And he said, Shelly Finkel also said that he would like it to be Showtime because they have a long-standing relationship with Showtime. But ultimately, Eddie Hearn has the final say in who broadcasts Joshua Wilder in the US. Right? Now, when I heard Eddie Hearn say this, I thought to myself afterwards, this ain't such a good idea. That the first fight you're gonna put on Dazn is Joshua versus Wilder, and I'm gonna tell you why I think it wasn't a good idea, right? Because the way do you remember Mayweather McGregor, right? Mayweather McGregor was shown on Showtime, and it was out in America shown on Showtime, and obviously UFC showed it on their channel. But the UFC also streamed it online, didn't they? You could pay for the pay-per-view and watch it online, right? Through their streaming app or whatever it was. Now, the UFC had a problem with their streaming app, right? They had to give back like millions of refunds apparently because they were having an issue with their streaming app, right? I remember the article over it. And do you remember Conor McGregor and Dana White were mad at Stephen Espinoza from Showtime? Because Stephen Espinoza said, well, we only sold in total something like 4.2 pay-per-view or 4.1 pay-per-views for Mayweather McGregor. And they were saying, no, we didn't. Dana White and Conor McGregor saying, no, why did you say that? We sold over 6 million. But then what Stephen Espinoza said that legally, we had to give the correct information. Because the correct information is that the UFC had to refund so many people because their streaming app had failed. So they couldn't include those numbers in the pay-per-view numbers. Right. You're probably wondering, why are you bringing this up for? This is my point. This is a streaming app. DAZN's a streaming app. Why would you take the risk of showing Joshua versus Wilder in the US on a streaming app when you don't even know how that app's going to work? You know, you may have teething problems. You may have glitches. You know? And imagine that, the biggest fight in boxing at this moment in time, the most lucrative fight in boxing, and imagine you had a problem. There was a technical problem and people couldn't pay for the fight, but then couldn't see the fight on the stream. It's an issue, right? You know, why would you take that risk? This is perfect now, right? Now that we're not going to get Joshua versus Wilder, we'll get Alexandra Povetkin versus Joshua instead, and they're going to put it on DAZN as the first fight, not only to capitalize from a financial point of view and try and entice US boxing fans to subscribe to DAZN, but at the same time, it's a great test run. If they were ever to make the Wilder fight down the line, like next year or the end of next year, it's a great test run. Do you know what I mean? Or if the Wilder fight, say, happens in February instead, again, you've done a little test run already. Because I don't know how many fighters Eddie Hearn actually has to DAZN. But apparently he's supposed to be going live with it in September. Yeah, and that's the date he's given, that in September, DAZN app's going to go live. What better way than to start it all off with Anthony Joshua and Alexandra Povetkin? Let's not risk putting the Wilder fight on there just yet, because if there's problems, we don't want to end up refunding people. Do you get what I mean? There's loads of things like that. But you know what's funny about this whole situation as well? On Tuesday, you get the WBA saying, you've got 24 hours notice, you need to make Joshua versus Povetkin now. And then on the very same day, Tuesday, the very same day, this story is released that Joshua versus Povetkin is most likely going to end up on DAZN in the US. Is that just coincidence? Or is it more than coincidence? I'm sorry, yeah? I don't know how people aren't seeing this. This is some bullshit. The WBA have put their foot down and demanded that AJ versus Povetkin gets made within the next 24 hours. It gets signed within the next 24 hours. And on the very same day, a story's leaked that Joshua versus Povetkin will be streamed out in the US on Eddie Hearn's new DAZN app, the online streaming boxing app. Bit weird, don't you think? What was that word again?
Corruption in boxing. Corruption in boxing. Corruption in boxing. Corruption in boxing.
Sorry, this seems too much to just be a coincidence. Connect the dots. I've been saying for ages that I don't see this fight happening this year. I want this fight to happen this year. I've said it. But connect the dots, man. Come on. I don't understand how people aren't seeing this shit. I really don't. I don't get it. Or maybe I think you guys do see it, but you all just want to deny it. Yeah, because you're just going to go along with what Eddie Hearn tells you. I've learned that already. Everyone who talks to me, or, you know, who debates with me about this whole topic, all they do is repeat what Eddie Hearn says. You don't use your own train of thought. Do you know what I mean? It's too much of a coincidence. So, on the same day that the WBA set a deadline of 24 hours to make AJ versus Povetkin, we get a story leak that AJ versus Povetkin is going to happen on, you know, on September 22nd, and it's going to be streamed in America through the Dazn app. Do you know what? Like, seriously? Connect the dots, guys. Okay, so we're nearing the end of this video now, but before I sign off, I kind of want to do, make a couple of more points which I forgot to make at the beginning of the video. God, jeez, it's been a long one, I tell you, man, but it had to be done. It was a long video, but it had to be done. All right. So my first point is that a lot of people are probably going to come back. I'm going to revert back to, the negotiation period. Yeah, well, I was talking about the contracts and all that sort of stuff, and the negotiations and stuff like that. Right. One of the things that Shelly Finkel brought up was the venue and date for the fight. Now, a lot of people out there, I heard someone on a podcast. I actually heard someone on the Boxing Voice earlier on, and he says, and he's from the UK, and he was saying, "Oh, you know, who cares about the venue and a date? You can sort that situation out later." Blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Okay. Here's my point. Didn't Eddie Hearn say the same thing when the $50 million offer was made? Didn't he say, "I can't accept the offer because I don't even know the venue or the date or where it's going to take place? Is it going to happen in Vegas? Will it happen in New York? Is it going to happen in Alabama? I can't accept that offer." Yeah, exactly. Again, double standards. It's okay for Eddie to question the venue and date when the $50 million offer was made, but it's not okay for Shelly to question the venue and date with this new revised, improved, apparently, low ball offer to Deontay Wilder. And my last point, again, when it comes to this whole contract and the negotiations, when the $50 million offer was made, Eddie Hearn says he can't accept the offer without seeing a contract first, right? So why didn't Eddie Hearn 4 weeks ago, when he sent the offer email, when he made the offer, the financial offer to Deontay Wilder with this new improved offer, why didn't he send the draft version of the contract then? Wouldn't that have saved a lot of time? Because apparently, according to Eddie Hearn, that's how you do a deal in boxing. You have to see the contract first before you can accept the financial offer. That's what he was saying. Remember, when the $50 million offer was made? So why didn't Eddie Hearn do that this time? Why didn't he do that himself? Why didn't he send the contract out with the offer email, a copy of it, with a draft copy of the terms and conditions of the contract? Why didn't he do that? That would have saved a lot of time, wouldn't it? Because that would have given Shelly Finkel, Deontay Wilder took 4 weeks, yeah? That gives Deontay Wilder 4 weeks to make his decision if he accepts the financial offer. But not only that, it gives Shelly Finkel the time to revise the contract and say, actually, Eddie, while we're still waiting on Deontay Wilder, can we talk about this contract? Can you change this? Can you change that? Can we talk about this? That doesn't make sense. We need that clarified, please. Do you get it? See what I mean? It's double standards. It's okay for Eddie to ask all these things and do all these things and say all these things, but it's not okay for the other team. That's called double standards in boxing. Yeah? Bullshit. It's all bullshit coming from Eddie Hearn. Come to think of it, Eddie Hearn, when he made the original $12.5 million offer, he never sent a contract out. He didn't send a contract out and said, here, look, here's our, here's the financial offer we're making you, and attached to this email is also the draft copy of the contract with the terms and conditions of all the fight in there. You know why he didn't do that? Because that's not how you do a deal in boxing. First you make a financial offer, and if the financial offer is accepted, you then ask for a contract. Yeah? And a lot of people out there cuss me out for this, but I'm going to say this through it. Like when you look at a $50 million offer, for example, yeah? And I was saying this when I was debating this guy in the comment section the other day. Alright? If Eddie Hearn was saying, oh, you know, I'm worried about the legalities, you know, it could be verbally binding, legally binding and all that if I accept it and not see a contract and etc. blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a way around that, Eddie. It's called technology. There's a thing called an email. And in the email, you just, instead of answering Shelly Finkel verbally, you put it in an email. And you say, you know, we're happy to accept your $50 million offer plus 50%, providing the terms and conditions of the contract meet the requirements of my client Anthony Joshua. Yeah? If the terms and conditions of the contract do not meet our requirements, we'll have to decline we'll have to decline your financial offer. Boom. That covers you. You've got something documented as proof. You've got something documented. You've got documented proof that protects you in the eyes of the law. See what I mean? Just not what I'm at, man. It's just all bullshit from Eddie Hearn. And you guys out there, you just eat it all up. You just eat it all up. It makes me laugh. You know, I'll be interested to see all the comments, you know, when you start, you know, attacking me for what I'm saying in this video. But, you know, I don't care. I actually find it quite funny. I laugh at it. Because I just think, do you know what? I can't believe that you guys just eat this all up. It's unbelievable. Actually, I just thought of one more point. Why doesn't Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua just pay Povetkin some step-aside money? Right? Deontay Wilder, remember? He wanted to fight Luis Ortiz. So you know when the first fight was supposed to happen? Was it end of 2017? Was it November 4th? Right? Before, you know, Ortiz tested positive for his failed drug test and all that sort of stuff. Why, you know, Deontay Wilder paid Romain Stavern, who was his mandatory challenger back then, step-aside money. Right? So he could fight Luis Ortiz. Now, obviously, like I said, Ortiz tested positive for PED. The fight got called off. He still fought Romain Stavern. And then after that, he still went after Luis Ortiz. So why doesn't Eddie Hearn do that? Pay some step-aside money. Think about it. You pay Povetkin some step-aside money, and we get Joshua versus Wilder. There's another good point. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, why should Eddie have to fork out money? Listen, the amount of money Eddie's going to make back from Joshua versus Wilder, because of how lucrative that fight's going to be, what he pays Povetkin to step aside is going to be peanuts in comparison. So pay him some step-aside money. So here you go, we'll pay you some step-aside money. Right? That's another option. Give it a go. Look, like I said though to you a second ago, it's all bullshit. You lot all gonna buy into all this bullshit and eat it all up as you normally do. Then you're gonna come on this channel and all the other channels that are talking like me and just attack. But I don't really care. Like I said, I find it quite comical when the AJ fans get all upset and start ranting in my comment section. But like I said, I don't really care. End of the day, like I said, Eddie Hearn is full of shit in my opinion. Simple as that. Look, that's my thought process in this whole situation and in this current situation, shall I say, between Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Eddie Hearn, Shelly Finkel, and the whole negotiation process of this contract and everything. And everything, the WBA, the Dazn story, everything. Yeah, that's just my train of thought around it all. You know, end of the day, you can believe what you want, but don't expect me to believe it. Yeah, I'm not falling for it. Simple as that. That's all I got for you guys on this one. As always, guys, like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.